Hello there ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to my first YouTube tutorial. This is going to be on GameMaker, using GameMaker 8.1, and it's basically just going to tell you how to create an object which changes the sprite that it displays depending on other objects of its that you specify around it. As you can see here, these are all the same object, but what they look like depends on what is next to them. So I'll jump right in and show you how to do that. Now, I personally hate it when people just go through something they've already made, so I'm going to start from scratch and show you how to do it. I'm not going to get rid of the actual sprites because that's just tedious having to make them all. Now, what you've got here is we've got various different sprites that all link up to each other. So you've got the ones for if there was only connection to the top, only connection to the bottom, connection to the top and bottom, left, right, etc, blah blah blah. And then you've got a basic nothingness sprite that I was using to base everything off of here. So we'll go ahead and save that, and that's sprite spr_wall. Now we'll go ahead and create the object that it's going to refer to. Make sure the sprite is the sprites that the sprite strip you're going to be using, and we'll just call that obj wall. And we can leave that for now. So we're going to be making it so that it can refer to different like objects can refer to the same script, so we don't have to keep typing out the code over and over again depending on what object, but we can have multiple objects that all behave in a similar fashion. So you've got 3 different types of walls, or 3 different you can have that in 3 different objects, but the sprite's changing like this. So we'll go ahead and call that scr image indexing. This is the script that we're going to be making. Oh, missed the underscore. So basically, now what we're going to say now is we're going to use collision point to tell where things are at. So if collision point, and then we're going to use the x and y coordinates. So first of all, we're going to use the x coordinates of the actual image, so self.x, and then -1, because that's just going to say where it is, but slightly to the left. And this is using it in the top left hand corner. I will show you how to do it, maybe in a different vid, maybe in this one, depending on if I've got time, on how to do it if the center, if the origin of the sprite is actually in the center. So yeah, self.x -1, that's just 1 pixel to the left of the x coordinate of the object. Self.y, that's the same with y object of the object. Now to make sure it's checking directly in the center of the y axis of the y of the object, we're going to add the sprite height, and then we're going to divide it by 2, and this will basically make sure that now it's going to be checking slightly to the left of the top left hand corner of the object, and then slap bang in the center of that face of the left hand side. Then what we're going to do is we're going to tell it what object it's got to collide with. Now we're going to type in argument 0 here, and because this is a script, I'll explain why later, but for now, just trust me. We can tell it precision checking, it's a box, it's not necessary, so we're going to say false, and to make sure it's not actually checking against itself, we're just going to say true. I'm going to go close that. Now what we're going to make it do if this is the case, is if we're going to make a variable, left collision, and we're simply going to make it equal true if this is the case. Then we're going to use an else statement to say if that's not the case, make left collision equal false. Easy enough. And now we've got to repeat this step for top, right and bottom. So we'll start off doing it for right. Again, it's pretty much following the same simple steps, but this time changing the x and y coordinates up slightly. So we're still going to want it to be halfway down the sprite, but this time we're going to tell it to add the width of the sprite using sprite width, and then plus an extra 1 just to make sure it's slightly to the right of the edge of the sprite. And yeah, so that's that bit done. Now we're going to do the top collision. So We'll change these to top again. Now this time we're going to want it to be halfway through the x coordinate. So we're going to tell it to add the sprite width and then divide it by 2. And on the self.y we're going to tell it to minus 1. So that'll be ever so slightly above the actual object. So we'll copy that up, and then we'll do pretty much the same again, but this time for the bottom. So this time we're going to add, instead of taking away 1, we're going to tell it to add the sprite height and then add another 1. Now so far this does pretty much nothing. This just checks collisions and changes some variables. That doesn't actually change the images. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we're going to tell it what to do if that is the case. So we'll make if left collision does equal true, so there is something on the left, and then we'll say but if the right collision equals false. Now that's basically, oh, if left collision equals true, there we go, that's better. So that's saying there is something on the left, but there isn't something on the right. And now we've got to specify up and down as well. So we'll specify there is something on the top, and there is something on the bottom. Now I've already made the sprites, so I know what the different image indexes are going to be. But you can change the order of the actual sprites if you wish. So if I close this down, you might not want your sprites in this order. That's fine, you can change it, but remember you're going to have to refer to it when it actually comes to writing this script. So we're literally just going to tell that to make the image index, which will refer to the different image within the sprite strips, and we're going to tell that to equal 0. Nice and neatly. And so that basically, if left is, there is something on the left, there is something on the top, there is something on the bottom, but there isn't something on the right, it's going to make the image index equal 0. And if we look here, the index for the 0 is left, top, bottom, but nothing on the right. Now, it would be long and tedious for me to do that over and over again for you guys, so I'm just going to quickly copy in one that I have made on a previous occasion. Again, we're using else statements in it, just, you know, for the lols, essentially. No, but it just makes it slightly more efficient, marginally. You could probably do without them, but if you can, then why not? And so these all refer to the different image indexes. So, say, we'll take this one for instance, one at random. So this is saying if the left is true, the right is false, the top is true, and the bottom is false. So if there is something on the left, and there is something on the top, but there isn't something on the right, and there isn't something on the bottom, display 6. If we look at 6, 6 is here, is something left, is something top, nothing bottom, nothing right. Now, if we try to use that now, oh, and also, before we go any further ahead, this statement that I'm putting at the end should never be called. However, it's nice to just put that in there, and that's just going to tell it about the that 15th index we had there with nothing on it, which is the blank one. So for whatever reason you might want to call that, there it is. So that is the script done. Now, oh, pardon me. Now if we go into we create a random room, then we go into our room. Now I'll set them out much the same way I did beforehand to really show you guys what's happening here. Now if we go ahead and do that, we haven't actually put anything in the object, so nothing is going to change. If we load the game now, it's just a lot of sprites being a bit strange, frankly. So we'll fix that up. Now in the creation event, we're going to want to set the image speed to 0. So that will mean that when it does choose what sprite it needs to look like, it's not going to suddenly flick to a new one. Also, in the creation event, now, if you had, say, it growing like an infection and you wanted it to change the way it looked each time, you'd put this next piece of code in the step event. But we're not going to do that. We're just going to have it so that it, in the very start event, it shows what it looked like. So we're going to refer to our script that we just made. So scr image indexing. Now in here we're going to put our argument that we referred to earlier when we typed argument 0, and in this we're just going to put what the object is that we want it to be colliding with. In this case itself, so it can choose what sprite to look like. So here we're just going to type obj wall. Now if you wanted it, if you had a different object, a different wall, say a red one, exactly the same but red, and you had a different object for it, you could go in the creation event, you could type exactly the same thing, but say it was object wall 1, you could type obj wall 1 and it would just use that same script again. So that's the benefit of that. So if we type this and now we start, it can't find the variable, so that's really good. But that's not a problem, I know why. It's because I can't spell. So we'll just load this back up, and the variable left collision. So yeah, sorry, our issue is that I can't actually type, so we need to basically make sure bottom collision equals true. I completely skipped that out because I'm a fool. Yeah, so now if we, I'll change that back to create. If we now go ahead and run the game, and here we go. And so this is what we've created. Basically now, depending on what is next to it, it will change the sprite to show that. Now, as I was saying earlier, if you were having it spread for whatever reasons, you needed to constantly keep checking to see if it needed to be, the image needed to be updated, we'd just change that to the step event. And yeah, it really is as simple as that. Now, how long have we got? Like, yeah, we really don't have time left. So if you guys want to know how to put it in the middle, I will put something in the description to show you. But there we go. Thank you very much for looking at my video. Subscribe, favourite, or I don't really know YouTube. Do whatever it is that you're meant to do. Post comments on what you think I should do next, if you think I should bother doing anything next. Points for improvements, blah 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 blah. See you all.